I had absolutely no idea how traditional artisanal molasses used to be made back in the day. I stumbled upon an old video recently, and let me tell you, it completely changed the way I see this thick, sweet syrup we so often take for granted. When we hear the word molasses, it's easy to imagine it being poured out of some factory pipeline, a byproduct of modern industrial sugar production. But this was something else entirely. What I saw wasn't just about making molasses. It was about heritage, about the careful, methodical work of human hands, and about a time when patience and passion went into every step of the process. Picture this: deep in a rural landscape, surrounded by open fields and thick trees, a small group of people gather, preparing to do something that's been passed down through generations. There's no complex machinery, no automated conveyor belts. Instead, there's the unmistakable scent of boiling sugarcane juice, the hiss of wood-fired stoves, and the rhythmic movement of hands working in harmony with nature. They start with the sugarcane, tall green stalks harvested with care, stripped of their leaves and chopped down to the perfect size. The process of crushing the cane is a labor of its own. In the past, people would use large wooden or metal rollers, powered not by electricity, but often by animals walking in slow, patient circles. As the cane is pressed, its juice runs out, collected in large basins, cloudy and greenish at first, raw and full of promise. Then comes the part that truly captured me: the cooking. The juice is poured into massive, shallow pans, usually set over open flames, fueled by firewood. There's a craft to this part, a delicate balance of temperature, time, and constant stirring. Too hot, and it burns. Not hot enough, and it won't thicken. The person tending the pan has to know, almost instinctively, when the juice is ready to transform. They stand there, hour after hour, skimming off the impurities that rise to the surface, watching as the liquid changes color from pale green to golden, and eventually to the deep, dark brown we recognize as molasses. There's no rushing it. This is a slow, intentional transformation, and as the syrup thickens, the aroma intensifies. Sweet, smoky, earthy. It's almost hypnotic to watch. By the end, what remains is thick, rich and glistening with depth, true artisanal molasses, crafted not just with ingredients, but with tradition, skill and heart. What struck me the most wasn't just how different this process is from the sterile, high-speed methods used in factories today. It was the connection. The people who make molasses this way aren't just producing food. They're preserving a culture, telling a story with every batch. You can see it in the way they pass their knowledge down, in the pride they take in their work, and in the quiet joy they feel when tasting the final result. In today's world, where convenience often overshadows quality, it's easy to forget the origins of the things we consume. Watching this traditional method was like stepping back into a time where every product had a soul, and every flavor carried the memory of the hands that made it. Have you ever thought about where your food comes from? About the stories behind those flavors you love? This glimpse into the old-world craft of molasses making reminded me that food isn't just nourishment. It's history, emotion, and identity all wrapped up in a spoonful. Let me know in the comments, had you ever imagined molasses was made like this? Have you ever tasted molasses made the old-fashioned way? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your memories, or even your curiosity about traditional foods and the stories behind them. It's strange, isn't it? How something as simple as molasses, something you might drizzle over biscuits or use in a holiday recipe, can have such a rich, complex story behind it. And yet, when you witness the old-fashioned way of making it, you start to realize that molasses is more than a sweet ingredient. It's a legacy. I remember watching the craftsman in that video, his hands weathered, his eyes focused. There was a quiet wisdom in him, the kind that only comes from doing something hundreds, maybe thousands of times. Every motion was intentional. He wasn't just stirring syrup. He was continuing the work of his ancestors, people who had stood in that same spot decades earlier doing the exact same thing. And then there was the setting. This wasn't a modern kitchen or a sleek production facility. No, this was outdoors, under the open sky, with smoke curling into the wind and birds singing in the trees nearby. The fire crackled beneath the pan, fed regularly with carefully stacked logs. The tools they used were simple, almost primitive by today's standards, but entirely effective. A long wooden paddle to stir, a ladle to skim, a bucket to catch the syrup once it was ready. And the smell, oh, the smell was something else. It filled the air with this deep caramelized sweetness, mixed with the earthy aroma of burning wood. It made you feel like you were stepping into another world, another time. As the molasses thickened, the process became even more hands-on. The syrup was stirred constantly to prevent scorching, and foam was skimmed off the top repeatedly to keep it pure. The people doing this work didn't need timers or thermometers. They judged everything by sight, smell, texture. They felt the process. And when they decided the molasses was done, it was transferred into containers, often old metal pots or jars, still steaming, still radiating that deep, soulful warmth. There's something deeply human about this kind of work. It connects us to the past in a way that's rare in today's hyper-digital world. It makes you appreciate not only the food, but also the labor, the love, and the continuity that went into it. It's easy to forget that before molasses came in neat bottles with glossy labels, it was the result of hours, sometimes days, of careful, deliberate effort. But what truly caught my attention was the community around this process. It wasn't just one person working in isolation. In many places, the making of molasses was, and in some areas still is, a communal event. Families would gather, neighbors would pitch in, and children would watch wide-eyed as the syrup thickened. There would be laughter, stories, shared meals. It was more than a production. It was a celebration, a moment when people came together to create something both nourishing and meaningful. One of the elders in the video mentioned how they used to look forward to molasses season as children. It wasn't just about the end product, it was about the experience. They'd sneak tastes of the sweet, unprocessed juice, watch the adults work the fire, and run around barefoot while the smell of sugarcane and smoke filled the air. It became a memory they carried with them for life. And I found myself wondering, how many of us have memories like that tied to the food we eat? It made me think of how disconnected we've become from the origins of our food. Most of us go to the grocery store and pick up whatever we need without a second thought. Molasses, it's in aisle 4, right next to the syrups and honey. But how many of us actually know where it came from? How it was made? Who made it? There's a beauty in knowing those answers, a kind of reverence. It turns a simple spoonful of molasses into a bridge between generations. A reminder that we are part of a long, unbroken chain of human hands and hearts that brought us to where we are today. And it's not just about molasses, is it? This same story could be told about so many traditional foods: cheeses aged in caves, bread baked in clay ovens, spices ground by hand, teas dried in the sun. There's something irreplaceable about the human touch, about doing things slowly, intentionally, and with care. That's not to say there's no value in modern methods. After all, industrial processes have made food more accessible, more affordable, and safer in many cases. But I think we lose something when we forget our roots, when we trade all craftsmanship for convenience, when we stop asking questions about where our food comes from. Maybe that's why videos like the one I saw are so powerful. They remind us that behind every ingredient there's a story, a person, a tradition, a moment in time. And maybe, just maybe, they inspire us to slow down, to be curious, to appreciate not just what we're eating, but how it came to be. To pass these stories along so that future generations don't just consume, they remember. Have you ever made something from scratch? I mean really from scratch, not with pre-mixed ingredients or shortcuts, but starting from the raw elements, the way it was done before recipes fit into 5-minute videos. There's a kind of magic in that process, a transformation that goes beyond the physical. You start with something ordinary, sugarcane, flour, milk, and through time, effort, and attention, you create something extraordinary. And when you share it, when you serve that dish or pour that molasses over warm cornbread, you're not just offering food, you're offering a story, a connection, a piece of yourself. I can't help but think that the world needs more of that, more traditions preserved, more skills passed down, more appreciation for the quiet, patient art of making something by hand. So the next time you see molasses in a jar, maybe you'll think of that open fire, the bubbling pan, the steady hand stirring with care. Maybe you'll remember that once upon a time, this wasn't just a sweetener. It was a craft, a ritual.